Could caffeine be messing up your results on keto? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, beverages like coffee and tea are totally permitted on a ketogenic diet. They're considered totally safe. So, what's this lady talking about here? Well, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience of what happened when I went off of coffee and how that affected my ketones. Did it make them go up? Did it make them go down? I'll tell you all about it so that you can see if, you're not having the results that you want on keto, if it might have something to do with your caffeine consumption. Now, for those of you who don't know me, hello. My name is Julie Sad, and I am a holistic ADHD coach. I help my clients bust through their ADHD challenges through the use of a ketogenic diet. So I love talking about all things keto and all things ADHD, and today we're going to be talking about keto and caffeine. Now, I started testing my ketones in my blood when I went to KetoCon back in April, so that was about 5-6 months ago, and I was so excited to get my Keto Mojo meter and test my ketones in my blood, and I remember walking up proudly to the woman at the demonstration booth and showing her my finger and waiting for it to say I was in super mega hyper ketosis, and I wasn't barely even in ketosis at all. I was at 0.4 millimoles, which is not even above the threshold for nutritional ketosis. So here I was at KetoCon, not in ketosis. The shame! Oh, the shame, the agony. I said, well, that's surprising. I thought I was in a really high level of ketosis. I'm really strict with my diet. Okay. So I got my little meter and I continued to test my ketones at home. And to my surprise, they were never that high. We're talking 0.4, 0.5, sometimes 0.7. One time I took a bunch of MCT oil because I was like, I'm getting this number up. So I took a bunch of MCT oil, raised my ketone levels to something like 2, 3, and then I threw up everywhere. So I was like, you know what? I guess my body just doesn't want to make ketones. I just don't know how to make the ketones. I don't know. I resigned myself to the fact that I just wasn't going to be a high ketone producer. But then, a couple weeks ago, I got a wild hair up my, and I decided that I was going to try something which for me was absolutely bonkers. Giving up coffee. Now, I live in the coffee capital of the world, Colombia. I live in Medellin, Colombia, and we are surrounded by amazing coffee farms and coffee plants. My neighbor has a coffee plant. It's just amazing. We have the best coffee in the world. If anybody disagrees with me, come on and let's fight. So I loved my coffee. I was drinking sometimes 8 cups of coffee a day. I know. But one Sunday I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try for today, see what happens. So I gave it up for one day. Okay, the next day was hard. I had a headache. I was tired. I went to bed early. But day 3, day 4, was tired, but I was okay. I didn't die. And now I feel fine. And believe it or not, my concentration seems to have improved, which was a shock to me. And I know a lot of people in the ADHD community love leaning on caffeine because it's a stimulant. So it works, similar to a lot of the stimulant medications that we are often prescribed. So I get it. But what happened to my ketones? Well, when I stopped my coffee thing, my coffee habit, I decided to measure my ketones in my blood, and I was shocked to see that the first reading showed 1.5 millimoles per liter. So it was, depending on the day, about triple my normal level of ketones. Holy crap. And I did the readings a few other days, and they were all above the 1 millimole per liter range. So I was pretty jazzed. And I thought, okay, let's see. Maybe this is just a fluke. Let me look this up online and see what's up. So I started Googling, as you do, and I didn't really find any good information. The information that I found said that coffee raises your ketones. And I said, but that's not what's going on in me. But then, coincidentally, I got the deets, the lowdown, the real scoop from one of the smartest people on the planet. And so let me tell you what it was. I just finished a training program with the brilliant Dr. Georgia Eid, and the name of the program was Ketogenic Diets for Mental Health Clinicians. So it's, teaching us how to work with our clients, in a very specific way to help them get started on a ketogenic diet for mental health. And in our last class, we were doing what's called troubleshooting keto, right? Where you look at what's going on with the client and you try to figure out, if they're not getting the results they want, why? And so at the beginning of class, I mentioned to Dr. Eid that, I had gone off coffee and that my ketone levels had gone up. And she said, well, actually, we're going to be talking about that today. And we did. And what she said was that in the short term, caffeine will raise your ketones, like the internet told me. But in the long term, it actually can lower your ketones. And here's why. By consuming excessive caffeine, by consuming excessive caffeine, you're raising your stress hormone cortisol. A lot of us with ADHD like to raise our cortisol. Some of us even have low cortisol. Believe it or not, we try to stress ourselves out. When your stress goes up, your dopamine goes up too. Bet you didn't know that. So when your dopamine goes up, your ADHD brain is like, yeah. So that can be one of the reasons that we sometimes procrastinate. We're trying to stress ourselves out. And one of the reasons why many of us ADHDers really, 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 really love coffee. So when you're drinking coffee, especially if it's all the time, you can have these very, very high cortisol levels, and you might not be sleeping that well. And you might just kind of have this stress situation going on. You're kind of stressing the body constantly. So that will take a toll. That will raise your blood sugar. So, by consequently, your ketones will probably not be so high if your blood sugar is a little bit higher. And that's exactly what appears to have been going on with me. So the moral of the story is caffeine in the short term can raise your ketones, but in the long term can actually lower your ketone levels. So if you're trying to hit a certain range in your ketones, especially if you're doing ketogenic diets for mental health, where we try to go for a little bit higher ketone level in the blood than somebody who is doing it for something like weight loss or other metabolic health issues, we're trying to do it a little bit higher. So we want those ketones. If you're having trouble getting into that therapeutic range, then consider taking a look at your caffeine consumption. There are other things, of course, that can affect your ketone levels, but that's one that you might not have thought of. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this little video. And if you like this content and you want to get more, hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, you may never see me again, and that would be super sad. So thanks so much for being here. Remember to subscribe and have a happy and healthy day.